Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for the business meeting of December 6, 2020, December 12th, 2021.
Did I type something wrong? Oh, I did. I have Angela, and who was the second one? Eric, thank you.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Dave? You approve
Okay.
the agenda?
Yeah, but I'm also looking for my copy,
You a copy of,
the agenda.
you don't have one there?
There's an extra one.
What was it?
It was mine, but I printed one out before I came. So,
All right, the open forum. The 30-minute open forum is the time the board sets aside to hear in-person comments from the public. Comments may also be emailed in advance of the meeting prior to 4 p.m. on the date of the meeting and state in the email if you would like your correspondence read out loud to Daphne Pearson, District Clerk at pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. This is an opportunity for residents to voice general concerns and compliments, especially about items on the agenda. However, this is not the time to register complaints about specific individuals or about items that should be addressed confidentially through the proper channels. All comments shall be addressed to the district clerk and be limited to no more than 5 minutes per board policy 2180. Please note that members of the board may not be able to directly respond to citizens' concerns during the public open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? If you could just state your name, please, at the podium. There is a gray button, and it's more for the recording so that they can actually hear you. Thank you.
My name is Travis Smigel. I have 3 students that go to Greenville here. All are in middle school or high school. I also coach basketball for the school at the modified level. Thank you guys for having this open forum, allowing me to be in front of you guys to speak tonight. The reason that I'm here is that I want to advocate for our assistant coaches and try to get payment for all assistant coaches at all levels in the school. My understanding of the structure of our coaching system right now is all head coaches are paid, and then we have 1 assistant coach that is paid. Typically that assistant coach is going to assist at the varsity level, and the JV and modified levels are kind of left to fend for their own. That 1 assistant coach is supposed to help out at all different levels, but if you're coaching on 1 team, you're dedicating that time to a team. Obviously, that's the varsity levels where stats and everything. You keep track of things at the varsity level. The JV and modified levels are feeder programs or developing kids at that point. So it makes sense that the assistant coach is at the varsity level. We have had some assistant coaches at different levels, but those coaches are not paid. And in my opinion, that's not enough to have just 1 assistant coach. We definitely need more. So assistant coaches need to take the same certifications as a head coach. They need to go through the same process, need to take all the classes, everything, need to pay the same amount that a head coach would take to be an assistant coach. And we don't compensate those folks at all. So they're paying the same amount. My first year as a head coach for modified, my certifications were right around $500. I was paid as a head coach, but I didn't have an assistant coach at that point, and it's helpful to have extra hands there. I know that we've had people in the past say that they were interested in assistant coaching. They found out how much the certifications cost. On top of already dedicating their time, they said, I can't do it. So what I'm asking for tonight from the board, and as far as timing, whether that has to happen at budget time or if it could happen at any other point during the school year, I'm asking for the board to consider compensating our assistant coaches at a minimum what they're out for certifications. It would be nice to give them some compensation for their time, but at a minimum, I think we should at least be reimbursing those coaches for what they're paying out. I believe on the agenda tonight you have an assistant coach for me. Actually, I've got somebody that's willing to step in, and they're doing the certifications. They've paid out of pocket at this point to step into that role, knowing that they're not getting paid, and that kind of prompted. I think there's other folks that have done that in the past, and it would be great if we could compensate them a little bit. So, for your consideration, whatever the timing may be on that. Okay. Questions for me from the board? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Do we have any emails?
No.
No. Okay. Then I'm going to move us on to presentations, and we have the national, we have FFA students talking about the national FFA and providing a presentation. So, come on up. And again, tell us your name for all of us. We know some of you, and but also for the people watching, and then just if you could use the microphone. We can hear you well, but they can't.
Right. Hi, I'm Justin Case, a member of Greenville FFA.
My name is Hunter Smigel, also a member of Greenville FFA and the state FFA vice president.
Hello, my name is Carmela Bucci, and I'm also a Greenville member of FFA.
So, in the first picture, as soon as we get to convention, we all take a group photo. In the next, we stopped at a college museum, and we got to see all the mummies. They have a mummified person from don't know how long ago, but pretty long. And then we stopped at Blue Buffalo, got to tour their factory of how they make dog food and how the steps in between. And then on the last stop, second to last stop, we stopped at a nature, like sort of nature classroom type, but it was, we got to tour like how the old-fashioned nip syrup was made, honey, and we did a lot of cool stuff. And then we also got to visit Lincoln Electric, which is a welding and metal manufacturer plant.
So once we get to national convention, we do things called sessions, and it's kind of like a really big meeting that they run. So you have all of the national officers there, and then often we'll have a keynote speaker, so they'll come and they'll talk about like their life and their experiences and all different things that we can take into mind just as FFA members. And this is at Lucas Oil Stadium. Also in the beginning they have time, like they play music, there's pre-session where all the FFA members get to come together. And they call it the Sea of Blue Jackets, because when you look out, you can see in the one picture on the bottom, it's just filled with FFA members. And I believe by the end of convention, there were over 67,000 people there. So that was really fun. And then while we're there, we also have a couple different like events that we get to do. So one of them was a concert, and they put these on like just for the FFA members. So again, it's just a whole bunch of different people from all over the country. And this is just a couple pictures from that. And then we also get to attend a rodeo. So they have like a huge flag they bring out at the beginning. They have like a show rider who she does like all sorts of different tricks like on the horses, and then they also have one of the talent members gets to sing there too. They do the national anthem and like a little performance at the halftime show, so they get to incorporate the FFA members into that. And then this is some pictures on our way right before we left. We got to go to like a zoo. So this is like an aquarium and a zoo. They had like a part where you could pet kangaroos, and we had a bunch of different chapters from New York that were there at the same time. We also, me and Aiden Pagan, we went to compete in talent. After the preliminary round, we made it onto the semifinals, and then we got to perform on the main stage where they hold all the sessions. So there were a couple thousand people there, and we ended up making the top 15, so.
So this is my little part here. So I had a different role than like traditionally in the past, as I've gone to this convention a few times before. But this role was a little bit different, but it was definitely really rewarding, and got to see a whole new like different perspective, you know, how National FFA is run. So at National FFA there is a delegate process where they pretty much, through a series of delegate meetings, decide new policies and different things that the National FFA will be doing and different actions that they will take throughout the next few years. So each state so there are 52 associations, so all 50 states and then Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands all have FFA. So they come together at the National Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the number of delegates you get is based on the population of your state FFA. So very similar to like the House of Representatives, for example. So New York State comes in at 6 delegates, and there are 6 members of our state officer team. So we all had the privilege to be able to serve as New York 6 delegates representing on the national stage. And it was quite the experience. The way it pretty much works is there are 6 different committees that are set up, and there are individual committee meetings that will pretty much draft what they would like to send to the committee floor, where will be presented to 475 delegates. So I was part of the Student Workforce Connection Committee, which pretty much really tried to find and connect better the students in FFA, you know, graduating, going into the workforce. How can we better connect them to the workforce, and what actions can they take in high school to get there? So that was really the committee that I was on, and yeah, like I said, it was a great experience. While we were there, we also had the privilege to pass a constitutional amendment to the National FFA Constitution, where now 5th and 6th grade members, so in the past, National FFA recognized members who from 7th grade onward, right? So New York State recognizes from 6th and onward, but National FFA, like I said, represented from 7th and onward. So now 5th and 6th graders are going to be allowed to be enrolled in FFA as long as they're enrolled in an agriculture education program. So, you know, that was pretty cool to be able to be a part of that constitutional amendment, and a good change and a big change for our organization. So thank you, and we would like to thank you for, you know, allowing us to go on this trip. You know, we had a great time, and, you know, it's one of those experiences that, you know, the memories will last forever, and, you know, hopefully the impacts that it made on us, like I said, will stick around for a while, and hopefully that we can make impacts on them that will stick around for a while as well. So thank you.
Hunter, can you tell them what the bottom right picture is?
Sure. The bottom, oh yeah. So the bottom right picture is just about as many New York members as we could get right in front of Lucas Oil Stadium. So I want to say there's well over 100 members. They may have even hit 200 New York FFA members that attended the National FFA Convention. Like I said, there was well over 60,000 members by the time it was all said and done, but it was good to see all those New Yorkers kind of come together and take that big group picture, so that was pretty cool.
Does anyone
Sorry. So I'm Michelle Case, one of their advisors, and I was able to go on the trip with them.
And I'm Brady Rogers, also one of their advisors. Mostly do middle school, but I got to take the lucky place of going with high schoolers. So,
But together, we definitely want to say thank you for taking the chance. We know that it's outside the box to send kids on a trip like this, week-long trip to Indianapolis, Indiana. So thank you for trusting us, and we hope to be on it again next year.
Any questions, or it's wonderful, and I think the experience is really, like you said, Hunter, life-changing. And I know that you do a lot of fundraising for the trip, the greenery sale and other elements behind it. So kudos also to you, to everyone involved in that. For that, can you send the presentation to Ms. Pearson so that she can add it in case anyone else wants to also see the presentation who later watches this? But thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you. If I could just real quickly say, again, congratulations, but I also want to, the students, you do a wonderful job in making sure that you represent Greenville very well. You make us all proud with the work you're doing both at the state level and the national level. So again, with the guidance of our faculty and staff from an advisory standpoint, I'm amazed at what you guys do on a regular basis in and around our school community, and then putting our name out there in a good space. So we appreciate everything you guys do. Great job. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Janet Massman. The business official is going to talk to us, along with Mr. Bennett, the superintendent, about the budget development process.
I think you're led off correctly with Janet doing the presentation, but I will just say that you've got in front of you your binders. This is kind of the start of a system we continue to do year after year. So what Janet will do is just kind of walk through with you and give you the highlights of what you've got in your binders, and we'll continue to add through this binder through the course of the rest of the year up into our goal. So, Janet?
Thank you. So we always start in December with just an overview of the budget process, what the state is looking for from us. So it's pretty much the same packet as last year that's in your budget book. Not everybody wants a budget book. Some people just want to have it digitally, which is fine. If people from the public want to look at it, it's also on the board docs. You can bring it up on your screen. So in the booklet, it shows the budget process and timeline. So my plan is to briefly go over the sections to let you know what to expect in the next few months. It will also be a good resource throughout the next few months. On the first page, as a district, we continuously review the current budget. We monitor our expenses to stay within the budget and to avoid waste. We review needed staffing levels, which are based on enrollment, class size, and the needs of our students. We're checking our revenue sources monthly and explore where we can share services. For example, if there's a new bus route, we try to maximize what we currently have, or we reach out to neighboring schools to see if we can share transportation. This school year, same as the last one, has been very difficult with finding bus drivers, and Mary Judicus does an excellent job with trying to get these bus routes combined to the staff that we have. Another shared service is the intermunicipal agreements that we have for tuition students. We have a great CSC director who puts out to other schools what classes we have for other students to come here instead of going out to other private schools, which costs a lot more money. So at the January board meeting, I will be presenting the rollover budget. The rollover budget is when we roll over the expenses of 22-23 into the 23-24 school year, with increasing the costs that are known or presumed, like salaries, any RFPs that we have that are for multiple years, BOCES costs, retirement costs, utilities, and insurance costs. So on the second page of your booklet, you will see the timeline we will be following for both expenditures and the revenue side of the budget. On the third page continues the timeline, and then on the bottom we have quite a few considerations when developing the preliminary budget. Like I said, we have the retirement percentages that change. TRS and ERS, they give us the percentages that we have to pay to them. Health insurance premiums always increase. So we'll see what that comes about. Then at the end of March, we have to calculate the tax cap to see how much we are allowed to increase our tax levy. We also hope that by the beginning of April, we will have our final state aid numbers. In the meantime, we will use projections released in January. With the federal money that we received, we are beginning to plan the funding needed to maintain the staff that we have going into the future. We hope with retirement breakage, we can start planning our budget with those increases. There are a few appendices in the budget book, it's just for you to understand the languages, how New York State wants us to report ESSA reporting, New York State transporting, New York State transparency reporting, how they want our expenditure codes to look like, how they want our revenue codes to look like. Appendix B is the legal requirements for the budget process. Appendix C is a glossary. D is about state aid. E is about fund balance. F is our state aid factors. G is our budget summary for the past 5 years. And H is our tax levy and state aid summary for the past 5 years. Any questions?
Thank you, and also for detailing all of the budget meetings, which are separate from the Board of Education meetings. And just as a reminder, in the past, we have not recorded those meetings. We only record the business meetings. So if anyone is interested in attending, they should attend in person. I'm going to move us on to a presentation by the principals on social issues is what I'm going to label it as.
Yeah, so as Brian and Christy get themselves set, Christy gets her water. We wanted to bring, it's not so much a presentation as it is a discussion around some of the social concerns that have been brought not only to the board's attention, but has also been part of what these guys have been dealing with pretty regularly for some time now, and that's issues in and around vaping as the primary issues. And again, so what we're hoping to do here is they can kind of lay the groundwork in regards to what they're seeing and how we're handling some of this stuff. We recognize that this is not a Greenville only situation or concern. It is statewide, it's national. So we are open to discussion around some of the different things that we can do in order to help form our community, try to put an end to some of this stuff. But Brian and Christy will start us off with just kind of what they're seeing and what they're doing, and then it'll be an opportunity for the board to ask questions. Okay.
All right, thank you. So like Mike had said, I think definitely there is a state and national problem. I was reading an article recently where the CDC estimates about 2.5 million adolescents use vaping devices according to the latest data. So it's definitely an epidemic that is occurring out there. Some of the things, on a daily basis, that one of the things that Christy had suggested last year is getting the halo sensors in our restrooms. These are devices that sense, pick up if students are vaping or smoking in there. They pick up actually THC, if there's any type of marijuana products that are in there. it will pick up aggression, loud noises, banging, if there's some sort of aggression going on is there. So what happens is when the sensor goes off, it sends emails to us. We're not necessarily always checking our emails at all times. If so, in the moment, we might be able to address something and look into it right away. Sometimes, depending on if we're out and about, whether an observation, another meeting, things like that, it might be a couple periods before we see that email, and then, but at that time, we still are able to look into it and still try to do something with it in that day if we can with it. By that, what I mean is that we do have in our hallways cameras that are faced in the hallways showing where the restrooms are. So then we get in that email, it'll say at 9:38 the vape sensor went off, and so you can go back to the recorded parts of the camera and go back to that time to kind of see who was in and out of those restrooms at that time, to try to figure out and narrow down who is a student that maybe we will speak to, or a couple. Sometimes it could be 3 or 4 students in there, so it's very tough to determine who exactly may be involved in that. So those things, but those are time consuming too. Sometimes going through some of that film can take, depending on the different things, can take a half hour, hour or two. So there's a lot of time involved with it, and we're trying to crack down on some of those things. We are bringing some students in the moment, or even a couple periods later. If we get a chance to look at those, we will bring a student down and talk to them about what was going on. Was there someone vaping in there? And then try to make that determination also, which typically most of the time is, should we be doing a search? Do we have reasonable suspicion to do a search on the students? I want to talk about some of the searches.
I just wanted to mention too what Brian said earlier, like when we go back and check the cameras, if we're not able to do it like during the school day because of whatever, like meetings, observations, other issues that are going on, at times we are able to check them like later in the day as well too, and we do collect some data on that. We try to identify students that maybe have been in the bathroom, and it's a pattern of when a vape sensor goes off. So we are collecting data as well too, even if we aren't necessarily seeing students that day. So with regards to searches, again, like Brian said, we have to have reasonable suspicion, and you have to have 2 administrators there. We really try to not pull in counselors because it's not their role, disciplinary. We don't want to ruin the relationship between the counselors and the students. But when there's something that's that needs to be addressed, we will use the counselors if another administrator isn't available. It's been really great though, because in addition to Brian and I, Denise Wickham helps, Matt Berkshire helps. We've even got Todd and Brooke on a couple times to help with some searches as well too. So it really is a team approach. I think you all know there's only certain things that we can do when we search a student. We have to make sure that we physically are not touching students at all. So we're asking them to go through a certain procedure. Like if they have a sweatshirt, we ask them to take their sweatshirt off. If they have a t-shirt on underneath. If it's a male student, I typically let Brian take charge, even if it is a high school student, or vice versa. If it's a female student, like I will take charge just because the necessary evils. There's different things that we ask them to do. Like we're pretty savvy with where they might keep some of the vapes. They're really good at hiding vapes as well too. And again, like I said, there's certain places that we can't check on students, and I think the students are aware of that, and that might be where some students are hiding some things. No matter what, if we find something or if we don't find anything, we are contacting home. We're letting parents know. There's been quite a few parents that either Brian has contacted or I have contacted, because a couple different times, we have searched students, whether we found something or not, we always call home. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, and also when they come into, we're bringing, anything they have with them, like their Chromebook bags, we're going through those, going through a backpack if they have a backpack with them. So, we're searching as much as we can, and we are finding stuff on students at times, and we're suspending them, and we're trying to support them with if they potentially have an addiction. We're having some of our counselors meet with them internally, but also I know Christy's had some people from Twin County recently. I don't know if you want to speak about that.
So earlier, probably like late September, early October, Tara Van Roy, she's an amazing resource. She is from Twin County Recovery Services. She came and talked to myself and the high school counselors. Kendall was involved in that as well too. And just kind of letting us know, I guess it was something that she's done prior to COVID, but I think because of COVID and because kids are being outside of school, I think schools were reaching out to Twin County, which I didn't realize they were a resource, but schools have been reaching out asking Twin County for help because they're seeing that there's an issue in their schools as well too. So she kind of like just laid out like all the different free resources and services that they provide, things that they can provide under contract within a school, and then what they do like outside of school with regards to like having a patient come to Twin County. So there was a couple things that came up that meeting. Just actually this last Monday, the 5th, the Twin County Recovery Services came in and they did a presentation on vaping, like the look-fors, like she actually shared something. We invited the middle school faculty as well to attend. Mr. Bennett attended. The one big takeaway that I had, and I'm like in the middle of all of this, is that she shared that there's something called vape hoodies out there. So literally it's the string that goes inside of a hood where students hooks up to a vape that's inside of like a pocket. And then the pocket then somehow is attached, or the vape is somehow like attached wire through the string, and students are using that. And think about how many times kids just chew on the ends of their sweatshirt strings. So, I mean, I know every time I talk to a student in the hallway, that's something like I'm looking for. I know when we do searches, that's what we're looking for. But that was a big takeaway. So that was one of the things that Twin County came in for. Another thing that they're doing, so one of the reasons why they reached out is that they're working with an organization out of Binghamton called Truth Farm, THARM, and it's a free resource to schools, and they're coming out to do a presentation to parents. It's interactive. It's called Shauna Has a Secret. And what they do is they'll set up like a fake teenager's bedroom on the stage, and there'll be different drug paraphernalia or things of concern that will be hidden in this bedroom, and parents are encouraged to walk through the bedroom and pick out what they think might be something of concern, and then there's a discussion that ensues afterwards. After Tara presented this past Monday at the faculty meeting, I thought it would be beneficial for her to come back, and she teams up with Brian Zimmerman, who is Green County Tobacco Free Schools. I might be saying that wrong, but we're going to invite them back to have a presentation to our parents as well too. But I didn't want to put two parent presentations in the month of January, so that one will be at Shauna Has a Secret will be out in January.
One of the things
Oops. No, I think it might be mine. Are you working with the PTSA on that? For the presentation for parents?
I did share it with them at the November meeting, but it wasn't till January, so I know once it gets a little bit closer, it's like the end of January, I believe. I'll have to look to see when it was, but I know Sierra is going to also help get it out there, out and about. But yes, I did share that with them.
The presentation with our staff was good the other day, just to make them more aware of it and just things that maybe we're missing. The Twin County definitely, they work with a lot of students who give them a lot of information of how students are trying to get away with it, things like that. Our faculty and staff really asked a lot of great questions that day, because we do have staff members that are trying to help support us throughout the day by popping into restrooms and trying to make sure students aren't hanging out in them. We're out and about in the hallways as much as we possibly can in between classes, and then also just trying to, again, see if there's a pattern with some students who are consistently going to the restroom every day, and we've got to try to do some other intervention with parental support of trying to, decide whether or not, that student needs to, have call to the office to go to the restroom or not. We haven't gotten quite to that point yet, but again, that's time and staff. I don't really have to do that either. We do have a couple of our support staff that have a period or two in their schedule free throughout the day that we do have them monitor the hallways and walk around and try to pop into restrooms, but we don't consistently have anybody who is every period in the halls trying to keep an eye on the restrooms. So that's, some of our struggles on a daily basis as we try to continue to, crack down on this in the classes or in the restrooms here in the hallways to make it an area that is, comfortable for our students to be in. One of the things too, just in terms of, our health classes in 7th and 8th grade in the high school do touch upon vaping and the dangers of it. I think in working with some of these outside resources, we can try to maybe hopefully get some more informational packets or flyers from them to try to get out more to our community of just the dangers of it. And you hear about what's in it, but we don't really have the data yet on the long-term effects, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be great.
One thing I would just like to add, with Twin Counties, one of the services that we're being offered as some of the discipline has come through my office because we have gone above the 5-day suspension on a number of these students with suspensions, is they will be able to meet with students in regards to their substance use and some of those abuse, and getting them as part of the possibility of coming back to school earlier, shortening their extended suspension based on them attending some of these counseling sessions. So Twin Counties has been very good with that too, and parents have been pretty supportive as they sit in my office and we have these discussions around extended suspensions around the use of vapes and marijuana in some cases.
And that's another free service.
Yep.
One of the things too is just, when we do find things upon students, we're always involving our SRO officer to make sure what is truly in some of these devices. So he's been a big help to us with these. He can't be a part of any of our searches, but he can, and after we find stuff, can take a look at anything we find in these devices to try to make sure we are kind of, using the appropriate consequences in terms of what a student may have on them.
Have we quantified how many emails, how many students, or a percentage? I would like to get a sense of how big an issue this is, and I don't have any concept of it. Are we talking one student? Am I talking 50%? Is it more at the middle school? Is it more at the high school? Is there anything you can share to just help me wrap my head around it?
I would say in middle school, I probably have got 2 or 3 that I am dealing with consistently, trying to either get or search. At times I've searched, don't find anything. And then it can occur again. So it's not, but you also don't know. Those are ones that I'm seeing when the vape thing's going off, and I'm trying to pull them in off the camera for searches. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know if other students are just not necessarily doing it here, so I don't know in terms of how much of a problem it is in terms of percentage that way. I know I've got 2 or 3 that I'm really trying to crack down on.
And there's a bit more at the high school. I can think of a handful that I have that I know, and I'm just trying to watch them more frequently because they're the ones that are hard to catch. There's been probably another handful, maybe 7, 8 that I have caught over since the start of the school year, or maybe not that many since the start of the school year, but even last year, if they were caught doing something last year, it's always in the back of my mind when the vape sensors go off and I see that student in there. The other problem is sometimes there could be anywhere from 3, 4, 5 students in the bathroom at once, and somebody has to have eyes on those students. So if I call one of the students in and Brian and I are searching that, where are those other 4 or 5 students going? And someone has to have eyes on them. So it's hard to separate. What we try to do is separate all of them, but it's it's lack of space and resources when it comes to that. So we have to be mindful and careful who we're grabbing and who we're pulling first to bring into our offices.
I think it's always been an issue in schools of people smoking, whether it used to be cigarettes or whatever. I think it's actually a lot easier for somebody right now, students, versus when cigarettes and a lighter and things like that. Right now, it's just a small little thing that they're tucking away somewhere, and typically in spots that we're not able to do a search on. So.
I have a question. You mentioned about the Halo sensor, if I'm pronouncing it right. Is it not online yet in order to send to the emails, or it is functioning right now through the bathrooms? Is there other ways where it could trigger like a visual light to, that you can check, the light goes off in the room, just so an aide, or it can go to a local aide so they know, there's a condition going on, it's reached something. So I'm not saying they can search, but at least they can get a head count of who's in. I know you have the cameras. I just thought sometimes a visual that it did alert kids don't want to be embarrassed that way, and it's just a way of deterrence, just to know something's going on.
Like a light within the restroom itself?
It could be, or just outside the restroom, or both. To know there's a condition going on. For one, you could have other kids coming into that atmosphere that they don't want to be part of. Sure. At least it's a deterrent for them not to go in. But it's also something that an aide or a teacher outside in the area can then trigger and say, I have a situation going in here. Yeah. Perhaps you can get to it sooner.
Right. I mean, if it's going off and there's people out in the hallway, yes, they would probably be able to step in there quick and see, right? But I don't know if there's anything that connects with that system though to do that. I mean, we can definitely take a look, but to see if there's like other support parts to that or not, it's worth taking a look at. Yeah.
Well, I assume if it could trigger an email and an output.
Right. I just don't know the company well enough to know if they have other things that we could add to us. We just have to take a look at it, call the company.
Follow-up question on the sensors. How effective are they? I've heard, my understanding is that never vaped, I don't really understand how you do it, but that there's a way to vape in a way that the sensors don't pick it up.
Probably, yes. I'm sure there probably is. It's the thing is there's a certain amount of sensitivity you can turn on those things, but a student could do it in other parts of the building too without us being aware of it. We only have sensors in the restrooms currently. So, there's, you hear of students who, they blow it into their hoods, or into the sweatshirts. So it's kind of almost soaking into the sweatshirt. So I don't know if it will, I think sometimes it can go off, sometimes it's not. So.
Are you getting alerts every day?
Yeah, we get a couple each day. Yes.
And how much of the usage that you found so far is nicotine or tobacco equivalent versus THC?
I would say most of it is nicotine. We've had a couple instances with THC. Yeah.
Have you heard any complaints from parents with concerns about their children's concerns with going into the bathrooms?
I'll be honest, last year maybe 2 parents have reached out to me, but I have not, even when I say, hey, give me a call, we can talk about this, there's no follow-up, that parent, if they say it at a concert, not an appropriate place to talk about it, right? But hey, give me a call, and then I don't hear from them, so I'm well, if they really wanted to talk about it, they would have followed up in, a phone call. But I've had 2 parents reach out to me with concerns about it. I have students that will email and say, hey, I saw this, actually today, I was at a building today at a conference, and when I got here tonight, I looked at my email, and a student had emailed me about vaping on the bus. So of course, I will ask Mary tomorrow if she can pull the footage from that, and then Brian and I might have something to do tomorrow with regards to searching, but I think more so students will say something to me about it, but I haven't heard much from parents, to be honest with you.
I was just going to say on the bus, it's actually, sometimes it's been a little bit easier because we have cameras in the front and back, so you can actually visually see somebody doing it, versus when they're in the restrooms, we're getting that sensor going off by the time we almost either get in there, or you get a student, they've had either time to put it away, or whatever. And even when you go, like I said, search them, you're not necessarily finding it on them. So we've had a couple last year on the bus we dealt with.
So I understand the difficulty of tracking down the devices and kind of monitoring that. It's not easy, it's a long-term effort. I've heard from multiple people, though, that there are a lot of issues with the bathrooms themselves. It may be entirely related to vaping, I don't know. What I'm hearing is that there are students who are uncomfortable going to the bathrooms, they avoid it. I've heard of students who won't drink during the day because they don't want to have to go to the bathroom, it's uncomfortable. Either because they're worried, as you said, about being caught up with others who are doing something they shouldn't be, and now they might appear suspicious. Or they go in and they're made to feel very unwelcome or uncomfortable in there, or I've heard reports of bullying. I don't know how much, I don't mean to say there's a huge bullying issue in the bathroom, but the point is, what I've heard from multiple people who I believe to be credible is that there's a real issue with conduct in the bathrooms where students will, one, either avoid it entirely because it's uncomfortable, and I've heard that they've started trying to use either teacher restrooms or the nurse's bathroom instead because it is seen to be a safer space. So I'm just concerned about all of that, and that is something to be managed aside from vaping itself, because I think just trying to catch whoever might be vaping doesn't get at that other issue necessarily. And part of that, another thing that I've heard, again, like this is a snapshot from different people. I don't mean to say this is, I can't say how widespread or extensive it is, but that there are classes where a student will leave the class multiple times to go to the bathroom during the class. So there's a bunch of things in there to unpack, but I'd like to hear more about how you're actually trying to manage that conduct in the bathroom so that kids can be comfortable using them. And I think part of that is also if students are trying to get out during class, especially multiple times, how do you manage that? And what do you tell the tech, how do you instruct the teachers to manage that?
Well, it's a tough thing for, should a kid go more than twice in a class? Typically, no. And typically, if someone needs to more in a period, we hear from the parents or our nurses do. But, I mean, period by period, we've gotten calls. I mean, we haven't got any calls about anything you've talked about. So if there are some concerns from people, please pass along for them to give us a call. But on the other note of it is that...
Brian, I apologize for interrupting, but I appreciate you saying that, but could both of you just say, for all the things I just kind of went through, like threw against the wall, have either of you heard any of that from students or parents?
I have not.
You have not?
I'm sorry.
Just all of those concerns about students being uncomfortable using bathrooms for all those reasons.
Certain students, or they'll say, I don't want to go into that bathroom, absolutely, yeah, but I haven't, not all of the things that you have said. But yes, students have admitted to, there's a handful of them that I know of that may have said that they're not comfortable, and like you said, there's other avenues that we use. We have 2 bathrooms right down here that, students are more than welcome to use as well too. But I mean, people are walking into, well, I shouldn't say people. I am asking adults, too, so you ask, what are we doing about this? So, we do sweeps all the time of the bathroom. There's other adults that are doing sweeps of the bathroom. I would really like more adults doing sweeps of the bathroom, but I can only give so many directives without it coming back to being an issue of some sort. I know earlier in the year, I asked Todd to order a standing desk so that Brian, I ordered one, and then Brian's like, that is a great idea, so he asked for one as well too, so that we could be out of our offices more, because we don't have hall monitors, we don't have assistant principals, we don't have, we have a couple of aides here and there that can cover, so at least we can be out and about more. And I mean, Brian and I are a deterrent in and of ourselves, there's the principal, I'm gonna go somewhere else. I think I've given the directive, I know at least last year as well too, to teachers, tell kids no if they want to go to the bathroom. I've never heard of a kid leaving classes or leaving the same class twice, but I know that there's kids that go to the bathroom every single day. I think teachers are fearful of students just telling them, well, I have to go and you can't tell me I can't go. And then I encourage the teachers to reach out to the parents because it's happening in their classes and say, hey, like I'm really concerned so-and-so keeps using the bathroom at the same day or the same period every day in my class. Like, is there something I should be concerned about? Because I think I don't know when that student is leaving that class every single day. So those are some of the things I've been encouraging teachers to do.
And we do get calls, if a teacher does try to prevent a kid from using the restroom, we get calls on that, of we're not allowing their child to use the restrooms. So it's a catch-all there of saying no. I mean, a lot of teachers are good about trying to tell students to go get the period, things like that. You know, and just being in some meetings around the capital region, I mean, other schools are struggling at times as too. There are some places that, you know, have started with the halo sensors and now have pulled them back out because they were like bringing 6 or 7 students down and searching them, and then they were parents getting angry about the fact that their child was being searched every time. So it could be some of those students walking into an uncomfortable situation, they're gonna go and use the restroom anyways, now it goes off, now that student sometimes associated with it. So there's a lot of pros and cons all over the place with some of this here. And then what's the best approach to it? I don't know if anyone's found the best approach yet. You know, like I said, I pointed a couple of kids where, you know, I'd probably try a couple parent meeting and talk about, again, having a kid be call the office, but again, it's people that were doing things that typically you wouldn't be doing for any of the students. But if that's something we've got to do for a while, to try something, maybe we will, I don't know. But again, it's a lot of, again, time that we're taking away from other things that we're supposed to be doing on a daily basis, so.
Ryan, do we have a sense of, are there, Christy, also certain bathrooms that seem to be more problematic than others?
I would say so, yes. We try to station people outside of those bathrooms, especially during like lunches, because they're just high traffic areas. So absolutely, you know, there's been some teachers that have been stepping up. There's been some support staff that have been stepping up and really helping out.
I know you're resource constrained. I mean, I know you don't have the resource, and there are limitations in terms of monitoring the bathrooms and trying to manage this. Also, obviously, not being myself in the building and just hearing from other people, again, I don't have the big picture of what's actually happening. But that said, what I'm hearing are things that I heard anecdotally occasionally last year. Clearly didn't raise it, but I've heard a lot more this year about it, and it sounds a lot more widespread and concerning this year.
What do you mean by widespread?
Widespread, I mean, like I said, I'm hearing from more people, and that it's not just...
When you say more, like, I guess I'm just curious, like, how many people are you hearing from too? Because I mean, kind of the same as I've got 2 or 3 that are on mine, like, how many people are you hearing from too? So just to help quantify things for me.
Off the top of my head, around 4 to 6-ish, and they'll say, you know, they're hearing from other people. And again, it's hearsay, you know, like becomes third or fourth hand. Some of it, I understand, you know, may or may not be, it's a game of telephone. Part of it, I do think, is credible, and I certainly believe when they say that they're, you know, it's their children or their children's friends who are affected by it. And what I'm hearing through that is that there can be lines outside of the nurse's restroom, for example, or a teacher's restroom, because there are enough kids who, but there are enough kids who are uncomfortable using the bathrooms that they're, again, either not using it or looking for alternatives.
I mean, I haven't seen lines outside some of our single bathrooms at all. I don't know about the nurses. I think the nurses told the other day a student had made a comment about they were coming down there because they didn't want to go into the other restroom. So that was something the nurses passed along to us. I think they would let us know if they were starting to get long lines in there, which I haven't heard from them, but we can talk to them about that. So,
I wouldn't say it was like long line, but just there were, you know, kids who were seeking that out instead of.
My hope too, Jay, would be that as a board member that you, like, if they're coming to you like confidentially, that's fine, but encourage them to reach out to us, because I think Brian and I are very welcoming and very open. I've never told a parent, no, I don't have time to speak to you about something, or if a parent calls, we both return phone calls. So that would be my suggestion as well too, because that's great that they're sharing with you, but if they can share more specifics with us, you know, that would be fantastic.
And not that we're gonna tell them that we will exactly stop everything, but I think just to know who we're talking about. You know, for example, like I encourage, like the first floor where of the middle school where there's 6th and 7th graders, that's not really a problem area at all. So like if some of our 6th graders though are in tech and there's a lot of high school students in lunch, you know, sometimes I'll tell kids, hey, just walk a little extra, go down and use the first floor. So if I can provide some strategies at least to some families in terms of knowing it, not necessarily, you know, their child telling them, you know, because I know people don't want to necessarily tell on other people sometimes either, but at least provide a student some other strategies, we can help them in that respect too. So.
Given the limitations that we have, I mean, again, limited number of people and time to, you know, I think maybe be more, to put it, to more actively monitor what's happening in the bathroom, like what could be done, at least for a short time, to try to, you know, have more eyes on what's happening.
I mean, I think we're trying to, I mean, on a daily basis, I'm short some subs in the building. So I'm covering support staff at times in places. I'm up near the 2nd floor middle school bathroom. That's another one that's used by both middle school and high school students. Some of the periods where I've seen the sensor go off, I try to be there. I've sat out there on my computer checking emails. So I mean, we're trying to be alert as much time as we have within our day, depending on the day. And it does make a difference, but I don't have that every day. If I've got a crisis going on with another student I got to deal with, or I don't have a support staff for a 2-to-1, you know, a student, you know, 2 students who have an 8 in a room, you know, that's a big issue we're dealing with at the moment too. We don't have a lot of people on our sub list, and that's not just here either. That's another problem around the capital region of people short of subs, you know, all around, whether it's bus drivers, support staff, teachers. So those are things we're trying to juggle on a daily basis also.
Yeah, I think that you touch on a good point, and you know, more eyes are always better, and I would agree with it. I think right now we almost didn't open school today, not because of snow, but because we didn't have enough people to man front offices, clerical, nurses, teachers, TAs. We were really close in working with Pete and the rest of the administrative team just to get coverage so we could open. And we were still short kids or adults to cover in certain spots. So eyes are certainly an issue in which we could use more of. You know, if the board was going to take a look at potentially instituting a hall monitor, if we could get people, we're having a hard time getting people to apply for jobs, but that could be something that we could do. I know that some schools have gone as far as locking bathrooms and letting one in at a time in regards to some of those issues. I'm not sure how far we want to go to address that issue. My one takeaway from Twin Counties as they discuss percentages and numbers of kids who are vaping, the dangers of vaping, the bigger concern that we have to face as a school district, as a board, and as a state, as a community, is these dispensaries that are now opening up across the area. And the access to gummy bears, the access to cookies, the access to pieces of chocolate. We are in no position to be able to monitor all of that stuff until the students have taken those things. So the vaping has become more of an issue because no longer are you walking by and smelling cigarette smoke. You're smelling nothing. And so I think, Jim, I love the idea, and I would certainly get with Scott to see if there is any way those halos can have that light. Even if that light is just there to tell that student who who is uncomfortable. If the light's not on, the student can go into that bathroom and feel comfortable. I don't know what that technology looks like. But the issue or the epidemic that we're facing today in 2022 is really no different than the epidemic that we faced in 1972, 1982, 1992, whether it be cigarettes, whether it be drugs, whatever it is. But I like the conversation because it really brings it to the forefront, not only for us as a board, I think our parents, I think some of the work that we're doing in regards to getting some information in to parents' hands so they understand the dangers of this, more education around the scourge of nicotine and how highly addictive this is. We are coming off a pandemic in which kids were left in their rooms with their own devices to do what they wanted to do, and unfortunately these major companies have marketed these products to kids and they are easily accessible. Although illegal to sell flavored vapes, you can go down to Cumberland Farms, you can go down to Stewart's, you can go to any of these places and still pick them up because no one's enforcing those things. Just makes our job as educators, as parents, even harder to do. But I like some of the suggestions that are talked about here. I don't know if we want to quite shut down our bathrooms to one student at a time and place someone out there with a key and to monitor who's going in or out. Seems aggressive, but it may be an option. And I really do appreciate the board and being able to come up with some alternatives here. Because we've got two principals here who are doing not only vape police, but are doing everything else, whether it's observations, whether it's monitoring cafeterias, whether it is dealing with parents, whether it's putting together budgets, whatever they're doing, on top of being the vape police. And we're open to suggestions, and I'd be more than happy to listen to others who've got some ideas. It's an ugly issue. It's an issue that is definitely here in Greenville. There's no doubt about it. We're open to ideas, suggestions, and some of that may have to come with some board support around some financial contribution to it.
I just wanted to say really quickly thank you, because you guys are just in the hot seat and it's obvious that you really care and you're doing a lot, and it's a new situation and we're just all in the same boat. And also, is there a way to just have an alarm go off? Because what's more embarrassing than vaping in the bathroom and having an alarm go off?
So there is an alarm on these, but it's only if you touch it, so it's a tamper.
I set it off the other day.
Yeah.
Just checking on time.
Yeah, he said it, he were doing a search of a bathroom and he hits it and it starts going. But yeah, so that was like one of the first things once kids started noticing them, they like jump up and try to tap them and it makes this noise and they all come running out. I gotta do it. And I'm like, well, somebody did it, because that comes through in the email as well too. But that's what they use. So I don't know if there's a way to like rewire it. It's part of their cell, is that like if somebody tries to touch something, that goes off.
I mean, it's an excellent point too, and sometimes there's only one person in there, and we're like, oh, I've got this person, this is, and you bring them down, and you still do the search, and you're not finding anything on them. So that's the things we're running into. Like, some of them seem clear cut that we should be able to get, bust that student, and you're doing the search as much as we can and not finding anything. So it's like, it gets frustrating,
But does that bring up another issue in whether it's code of conduct or policy or something like that, is that gray area, that to address that gray area? Now, okay, you didn't find it, but if it sounds like a duck and it quacks like a duck and,
probably a discussion with.
Well, and it's a piece of technology as well too, so we can't always rely 100%. I mean, if Brian, again, threw him under the bus. Brian was in there the other day and it went off when Brian was in there. So obviously Brian is not vaping in the bathroom, but it
Brian, were you vaping?
Yeah. But I had to talk to Scott, and he had to
recalibrate.
Trying to find something is going to be more, it's easy for us to do. So you're right, it's a gray area of like, well, it just went off, so automatically you're suspended. I think, right, but I'm just saying, I'm not, it is a gray area, so I think that leads to some more discussion we need to have, and potentially even with Mr. Honeywell.
And that's why we are collecting that data too, so we can say, aha, this person has been in the bathroom the last 4 times it has gone off, or whatever the number is. Then I think it's a little bit of a different conversation.
Right, and I think the other thing is really to encourage all parents to reach out to Christy and to Brian. It's essential that the only way that we are going to make strides and improve is by having open dialogue and so forth. So I have a hard time believing that because I'm so opinionated. I'll just march into anyone and say, well, let me tell you what I think. But so I understand the balance, but I think that it is very important for parents to reach out, because if they're hearing something from their child, how much of it is 100% accurate, how much of it is hearsay or an interpretation. I mean, all those things have to be clarified for that.
Or if they haven't heard from their children, talk to them anyways though, and just see what they're saying, and educate them, having those open dialogue conversations. So.
Well, I like what Angela says. I applaud your efforts. Obviously, it's not your primary focus for your position. I think, to get back with Jay and some other technology, we need to be able to assist you so you do your primary job to let some technology do some things. There's some other things. I know there's a camera there. There's technology where we can track. I know in these multiple use bathrooms, the issues are probably not the single units. The issue are or multiple people can use the restrooms. And you have a collection where people are going and they're going to meet each other, and that's where it gets the issue where some people don't feel comfortable going in there with a certain, environment. So if that's the case, then we can also, in those restrooms, look at the cameras and find out how long, periodically, just for data, find out how long are the people in the bathrooms.
That is what
So that'll say, okay, why am I 40 minutes in the bathroom? Why is this group always combining? It might not get you to the point where you can take action, but it gets you to the point where you have data, where you know where the issues are, and then you can move forward somewhere else where your jobs are not primarily doing this. Then we can take action with something else.
It's data to share with some of the parents, so even when we're not finding anything on a student, we're calling and saying, look, they were in there for this long, and it's ironic, here's 2 days in a row, so we are, you're right, getting some of that and getting periods of times in there to at least be sharing with some parents, and I have to say, a lot of the parents have been supportive and seem concerned that their child could potentially be involved in something like this.
So particularly where you think you have the student, right? There's one person in the bathroom, the alarm goes off, and you search them and find anything. They could potentially be hiding it somewhere in the bathroom. Have you ever searched, looked? Do you ever find anything?
Yes, that's how, even the other day, I set the alarm off because I was checking under tiles and stuff.
So you found the devices hidden in the bathroom?
No.
No.
But we are checking.
Okay, good.
There's not a lot of hiding places, but no, there's certain spots where someone could potentially put one that we are checking, just because trying to find something.
So I definitely appreciate the discussion. I wish I had a better handle on the overall scope of what's happening. I wish we had more resources to try to be more proactive about managing. I understand why we're focusing on vaping. I don't know for certain that if vaping were to go away tomorrow, that how much of the problem would go away, at least with kids who feel uncomfortable in the bathroom. If it's entirely because kids are loitering there vaping and there's stuff flowing from that, or if that's only part of it, I don't know. I'll encourage people to reach out and tell you if it's also possible, though, maybe through Sierra or some communications, to ask the community also to reach out with concerns or information, when we talk about getting information out to the parents, at least about vaping, when will that happen?
We will work with them on it. I can't give you an exact date, but we'll try to get something soon.
Okay, but there's nothing in the works?
It was meant to be informational, so is that what you were?
Yes, information about vaping,
And
vaping,
have
what it is and what's happening.
And how to have conversations at home.
Right. So is that being planned?
We are, I mean, again, it's something that we've been talking about. We've got some resources that we've been starting to work with. But yes, definitely we're going to talk to them about getting some informational stuff out to parents, just again, to be making them aware of the dangers of it. And trying to have them have conversation with students also. Because I think there are probably some students that are doing it that aren't even on anybody's radar, unfortunately.
Would encourage you to please get that out sooner than later. And again, given that it's a problem that I understand, it's not just a local problem, but I think we need to be, responding more quickly with something like this to get the information out and try to, engage the community on it too.
Jay, I think it might be helpful to have a sense of the magnitude before we send something out. I don't know, how do other people feel?
Magnitude of vaping, we know it's an issue. We don't know the magnitude, but we've had informational sessions before. And that might not be the full scope of the problem, but it's something that we need to try to tackle too.
But what I'm saying is I'd like to have a sense of how many emails are being sent and so forth. I mean, are we talking 10 emails or are we talking 200? So that's, before we start sending something out and magnifying it, I'd like to have a sense, if everyone disagrees, then fine. I find it helpful to put it in perspective. Yes, we understand it's an issue. Yes, we understand it's a national issue. I think that open communication is really important with the parents, but there's that line, if I send something out, then, and let's say it's 3 individuals who are frequent flyers, then am I making it bigger? I don't have a sense of how big it is, so I'm really struggling with this.
Yeah, I think that we can, I think it makes sense to put something out, and sooner the better. I think we want to make sure that we're providing resources for families in regards to what they can do and how they can talk to kids. So we can put something together rather quickly in regards to, what does, an information blast go. Listen, we know that this is an epidemic that is across the state. We're not immune to it here in Greenville. Here are some of the things that we're dealing with vaping. This is what it does, but we want to make sure we get that information out there with some resources, not just kind of a scare tactic, but a little bit of information to go along with it.
Sorry, Mike. One of the things, I think the thing Ms. Gorgon was mentioning earlier is on January 10th,
Shauna has a secret.
Shauna has a secret, so we can put an invite to that out along with some of the information about the dangers of vaping. I think it would be a good thing, and hopefully we can get that out here before the holidays. I mean, January 10th will be quick, so start getting on people's radar, and then get something out right after the break again too, as a reminder of that had gone out for that thing on January 10th. And we'll reach out to the PTSA too to help us promote it.
Thank you.
Tracy Hudson, along with your point about needing more information, whether it be just the data created by the email sent from the sensor, that would go along with what Mike might be requesting at budget time. If there's going to be a need for personnel, we need to have some kind of proof that is accurate, that we need that personnel. Christy and Brian, this is a job that you don't want to do. I definitely know that. My question is, I'm sure when you bring in a student, you talk about the laws. And I'm sure that Mike does when he has the superintendent hearings. I mean, it's illegal to buy these things if you're under 21. But more importantly, coverall is that it's illegal for anyone to use those products or any smoking product on campus or any student or any school. So I'm wondering about the reaction for students or parents during a superintendent hearing on that issue. But then when you mentioned, Brian, that in your comments, it almost sensed that you only involve the SRO when there may be THC involved. Okay, because
we have them check whatever thing we find. Double check.
Because that's all, whatever they're using, it's illegal.
Well, it's illegal for that student, yes, right.
And then, you know, there's the whole thing is use or possessing it. And I'm not, honest,
All
I don't
three of
know if
those
it's a
fall in the
possession
same,
law.
they all fall in the same spot with our code. And then
Yeah.
if anything's involving THC, you know, when you talk to the law enforcement now, I mean, you know, many times they're like, we can do more as a school in terms of consequences versus like the sheriffs or
Yeah.
state police now. I mean, it's gotten less and less of what they can actually do.
They don't even train their dogs anymore to sniff out marijuana.
Well, why would they? Because the state just made it illegal. But Brian and Christie, what is the student's reaction when you mention those things?
They're aware, and I think even there's a deeper conversation there too. It's the why, right? Like, why do you do something like this? Because I think, to me, yes, it's important for them to know that it's illegal on school property, but the why. Like, why are they doing that? Because then we're not going to get them to stop if they're doing it as self-medicate or because, you know, they're depressed. Because then at least we can say, all right, we're going to refer you to Twin Counties or we're going to refer you to your counselor. So we do have those conversations. I think most students are, at least at the high school level, they're like, yep, we know it's not, you're not supposed to do it. I mean, they're not saying it as blasé as I'm saying it right now. But they're aware that what they're doing is wrong. I think there's their need to do it because of that addiction piece or whatever they're trying to cover up, mask. I think that's more important to them than, and the thought is, I mean, they're teenagers, they don't think they're gonna get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know that brain.
Eric, you wanted to?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for doing the presentation and educating us. Some of the topics that you brought up, I remember discussing from a PTA perspective a decade ago. I mean, this is not new. The situation, again, as Dave brought up, is that whether it's tobacco or other substances, they're illegal for minors. And these are really parental things. I mean, I appreciate that you guys are doing a lot of work here and trying to help our community and our students become responsible adults. But we really need to get the parents involved. And I know that's not your direct job because the parents are responsible for their children. And as much as we as a board want to do something, and as much as the district wants to do something, if the parents aren't doing it, we're not going to change the behavior. So that's my 2 cents. Parents, if you're watching, they're your children. Take care of them. Thank you.
One of the things the lady from Twin County did say the other day is that as they counsel with some kids and hear where kids are either getting it or buying it in the community, they're notifying the sheriff right away, and then the sheriffs are trying to send underage people in to see if they, as a sting, to try if they can buy it, and then at least try to ticket that place, whatever. So, you know, Greene County sheriffs are well aware of it also, of trying to bust some of these places that are actually selling it. Yeah, she said another student talked about how they drive by a certain house and they pick it up in a mailbox, you know, so there's a lot of stuff out there that, you know, our teenagers are dealing with, and, you know, getting it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
No, thank you. It's a great discussion. Thank you.
I'm going to move us on to our action items. I need a motion to approve the minutes for the board meeting from November 14th, 2022. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending November 30th, 2022.
Eric, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Angela, Eric,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Eric, Dave, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the results of the capital project and the student Board of Ed member vote, with the addition of a student representative on the Board of Ed during the vote.
Angela and Eric,
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Question about the student BOE member and the process used to select them. I think we've had some discussion, a little bit of discussion about what that would be, but could you clarify? It seems to me this is something the board should be consulted on, but I don't actually know what the process will be for setting up the process to pick a student and then picking the student.
Sure, I'll pass around the draft that I shared. It's been updated a little bit since I shared it with everyone. So again, this will go through the high school process of announcing this as a possibility kids can apply for, application process, in which kids will be asked to, or students will be asked to do a few things, just like they were applying for any other job. And then this process, with a committee that'll take a look at eligible applicants who will then be, once those applicants are vetted by the committee, they will then be voted upon by their peers to see who would be to be the one who's going to represent the student body in regards to serving as a student board member.
I have a question. Explain to me the reasoning behind wanting them to be in the district for 3 years. I mean, what if it's a new student, but they're very well liked and they're very well connected with all different age groups? Could that be something that they can explain in their essay of why they still think they should be included?
I'm sure that we could, deal with each applicant as they come across. I think the idea for 3 years is to have someone who's known the history, a little bit invested into the community, who is a little bit more aware of the history of how things were, how things have changed, why things were done. A student new to the district may have some good ideas, but may not have that level of understanding or history.
Mike, I think that, unless my colleagues find fault with some of these words, this is a great plan to get us started. I think we're planning on introducing this in January, is that correct? But what about, in response to what Angela was mentioning, or in addition to what Angela was mentioning, how do we continue the process? Who is going to be next year's board member, and how is, and we want them to start, do we want them to start in July when we start our new board? Or are they expected to start in September when they start school? So there would have to be a 5, 6, and 7 maybe or something.
Sure, we can discuss start time being whether we want it to be a July, at the reorg meeting, start at that date, or start once the students come back to school.
Or when,
whatever.
When are they elected? Are they going to be elected in the fall?
The idea would be to have them, folks going into the summer, knowing who they were. So where I've seen it in the past, it's been a spring nomination process. And I think I've said it before, it's been my experience that you don't get a lot of students who want to do this. We've gone in Skodak a year where we didn't have anybody want to do it, 4 out of maybe the 5 years. So but I don't think we've ever had more than 2 kids who wanted to actually go through and be a part of this. Greenville could be different. We could have 10 students step up and want to be a part of the Board of Education, and then this process really becomes an important way to vet and get the students out here who are going to represent the entire student body.
I have one other question. Obviously this is a great start, but also, not saying what are the benefits, what they're getting back, but I know sometimes with extracurriculars, you have G points, you have other things within the school. This is a all-year kind of event. I know with sports you have certain things, other clubs you have, as we talked about, how many G points might go, or I'm just saying for that thing, to be part of the school board that would assist them, whereas maybe they don't do sports and they do other things where they can feel part, that way as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what we've seen and what I've seen in my short time here is you've got a group of students who are involved in everything, and at least by title, they join a lot of committees, but we don't see them actually show up and be part of those. So one of the things that through this process is really understanding the time commitment to these and the expectation of, if this is really something you want, the expectation is we're putting you at the board table and that you're sitting with the board and going to be asked to contribute. So, it can't be in name and title only. It's going to require them to actually be here. And again, it's great that we may have students who are involved in sports who want to be a part of it, or FFA, they want to be a part of it. But those kids spread themselves out pretty thin, and they're not able to give as much as they probably should. And we have students who don't have those opportunities because they may not be involved in those things that may find this to be a really intriguing and interesting and beneficial opportunity for them.
And I agree with that. What I'm saying is it's a commitment on, so instead of say something on a sport level, you get 5 points for a particular sport, to move towards. I'm just saying in general that this is an all-year thing. I think we should also recognize the commitment for them as G points or some other type of criteria, because it's a full commitment. It's not just meetings, it's also time away from meetings, gathering input. And I think we should logically, to get the best candidate, it might be maybe they get 15, 20 points, or because it's a full-time, full-year commitment.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look and see how that could work.
I think Jim's looking for some definition of recognition for their effort, and I think that since it's senior, it might be appropriate for a special mention at their graduation. And there's all kinds of avenues you could take with this. You could have a plaque on the wall where, if it's going to be an ongoing thing, a name is added and a year that they served.
Also, I was wondering if could we have a panel of a cross-section of our student population maybe reading these letters but not knowing who the student is? I worry a little bit about it turning into a popularity contest with the vote. So I don't know if that can necessarily ever be avoided, but just a question that I had, or a concern maybe.
One of the things that, for example, Rotary does when they are reading the essays is they're done blind. So the people that are evaluating do not know who the candidate is. That may be something that we want to consider.
I think that's a good idea. I would support that too. And Mike, I know you talked this a little bit, and I'm sorry if I didn't follow, but can you talk again through the timeline of just completing this draft and then getting it started?
So ideally, once the board is okay with the process, and this may be something that we, I share with you again once we make some of the adjustments talked here tonight, I would love for this to be able to be finalized for the January board meeting, and then the next day be able to put this out to students.
And that would be, you said put it out to students for a spring selection for someone to start summer or fall, right?
Correct. I mean, ideally, if we could get something up and running for this year, that would be great to give someone that exposure for a couple of months. That would be ideal. I wouldn't be opposed to trying to get somebody in place for, March, and finish out the year. Gives us all an opportunity to kind of get a feel for what it looks like.
Okay, great. Two last quick things. One, if we have any suggestions or thoughts on this, can we send them to you?
Yes, please do.
Great.
And I can, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And just say again, I agree with Angela about it might be hard to avoid having to be a popularity contest. I don't think there should just be a popularity contest. So, if, as you're going through it, if there's some way to try to make sure that it's selected, I don't know how you would avoid that entirely. But if it's just a matter of having the application be blind,
yep,
and that's the way to avoid that, then I think that would be a positive way to proceed.
Well, and I will tell you, I would be very excited that if that's the types of things that we have to worry about, because we have that many people applying for this, that would be a good thing. But there are ways. I like the idea of stuff being blind as far as what's being read and moved along.
We're still discussing this item, right? We're eventually going to vote on it?
Yes, in January, I think is what we just said.
No, I think we're still waiting on the vote of this.
This is just the
You mean
vote.
this is 5.5?
We are still discussing this item. We have not voted on accepting it. That is
Okay,
correct.
I'm just going for a point. It's fine.
And we did have this in as discussion later, which now
Right.
probably.
So should I
eliminate.
save my comments for the discussion?
No, just go for it for consistency, please.
All right, so since you want to kick this off in January, I think that your idea of getting it out there is very important. And Angela had a very interesting point when she said the must, eligible students must. If that became a should instead of a shall, I think that the process that you do in your review will automatically select the more appropriate candidate by them doing those shoulds. So it wouldn't eliminate anybody just by the specific of them only being here for 1 year. And my thoughts on the G points, I know that I'm paid a lot to be here, so I think any student who participates, I don't know if they need G points. I think they're doing it for other motives, because there's easier ways to get G points, and I hear that giving G points out might be something to do, plaque might be something to do. I'm hoping the individual is coming here to do things for their own internal id. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Any other comments? If not, I'm going to ask us to vote then. So then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the Greenville Central School District Health and Welfare Services contracts for Grapeville Christian School for 2022 and 2023 school year.
Dave and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the fire reports.
Eric? Angela, did you raise your hand? Thank you.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to amend the 22-23 rates of pay for the food service substitute rate.
Jay and Eric?
Any discussion? And just want to mention this is to be in compliance with New York State minimum wage increase. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the bid awards, the amount of $219 to Auctions International for chairs and desks.
Dave and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve donations to the Greenville Central School District in in the amount of $4,895.53.
Angela? Eric?
Any discussion? I am included through the Rotary Club on one of these donations, so I'll abstain.
Should I
Oh,
Okay.
no, yeah, okay. 1, 2, there's still 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I can't. Bad girl.
Okay, Duncan, did you vote okay for that? Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. All right, so now we are moving on to discussion, and I have Duncan. Can you, we have Duncan who is going to talk about a NISBA article that he was instrumental in doing. So go ahead, Duncan. No, we can't hear you.
Unmute your. I can unmute, I think.
Can you unmute him? We're trying to unmute you, Duncan.
No, he's got to do it.
It should be on the bottom of your screen. Any luck? No. Okay, all right. So everyone should, he is on the phone, but
He's
I
got
don't know
himself
if,
muted. I think he-
no, he's trying to,
I can
but
see him muted.
yes, I can see it muted also. The bottom of your screen, the first icon in red. So everyone should have seen that there was a NISBA article that came out recently on Onboard, and it was written by Mike Bennett, and just talking about some of the great work that he has been doing as it pertains to gun safety and the ramifications in schools. Mike, would you like to talk about it?
Just in the fact that I want to thank Duncan for reaching out to NISBA so that they would be able to see if they were interested in writing a story on some of the work that we're doing through our Principal Recovery Network that is dealing with not only school shootings and violence in schools, but also the recovery of schools and communities, not only for school shootings, but tragic events that happen. As we put together this guide to recovery, one of the things that we really realized is that this is a useful tool not only for building principles after a school shooting, but for any tragic event, whether it be car accidents, suicides, deaths in the communities, death of a teacher, those types of things really help to formulate a plan for building leaders, but also for school superintendents and ultimately boards of education who have to support some of those things that people want to do, whether it's commemorations, plaques, things to remembrances. So this was a good opportunity for me to be able to write for this article for NISBA. There will be one coming out for the New York State Council of School Superintendents as well. And I don't think anybody in this room knows this at all. I was just asked to speak at the national conference for American Association for School Administrators. I have not decided whether or not I want to do that. They reached out to the National Association of Secondary School Principals, who kind of oversee us, and asked if there would be someone in the group. They use my name, and there is some possibility that I present, if the board will allow me to, my wife would allow me to, in San Antonio, Texas in February, on just the type of work that we're doing. I've also been asked to present at the statewide Superintendent's Council's midwinter conference in March. So again, haven't decided whether or not I want to do that. But this is all due to Duncan putting it out there, and the work that we're doing with the Principal Recovery Network. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for not only taking the time to write it, but being so passionate about it. I think it's really important, and you serve as a wonderful example, both to the community as well as to students and others, that when we really feel strongly about something, good can come from it. So thank you. And thank you to Duncan.
I think I found myself.
Oh, hey! Go ahead, Duncan.
By rotating the screen about the piers, but when I had it in portrait view, it was nowhere to be found. In any event, number one, if we need to talk to your wife, Mike, I think we'll talk to your wife. But really, all kidding aside, it is, I think, to our advantage as a school district and as a community to have somebody who's had not only the experience you personally went through, but what it led to, and your ability and the possibility you had and have embraced to talk with your peers throughout the country. I think it brings a wealth of knowledge to us in particular, and certainly I would encourage anytime you can to take advantage of these offers to appear and to discuss this both at the state and national level. So that's my endorsement for that particular issue. But I certainly appreciate the fact that you, number one, have a family life to deal with, and number two, are concerned about your day-to-day responsibilities here at Greenville. But think strongly on the opportunity to pass on your knowledge and experience to others. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan.
All right, then, Mike, if you could give us an update for the capital project, some of the next steps. Now that, first of all, I would like to thank the community for passing the capital project. We are greatly appreciative of the support that we received, and now we'll have plenty to do. So, Mike, what are some of those next steps?
Yes, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but appropriately so. Thank you to the community for showing confidence not only in our administrative team but in the Board of Education to manage these projects and manage the money. I think that this is a big ask, but we only ask because we also feel it's a big need. It's a great opportunity for us to really improve upon some of the wonderful things we've got going on here in Greenville and address some of those areas of concern that we've had in regards to old infrastructure and old buildings and things like that. So, you know, we were really excited to get to this point, but this is just the beginning. We were planned this morning to have a meeting with SEI as our kind of our kickoff to get into the next phases of this project, but as Mother Nature would have it, we were unable to connect because the meeting was at 8 o'clock this morning, and needless to say, we were still scrambling to cover things. So we will be meeting with them on Wednesday afternoon, and a lot of what we'll be discussing is just that next phase of design and really from the very beginning, stakeholder groups, who are we going to need to involve in this process in regards to areas of concern, what to expect during these processes. You know, when we get stakeholder groups together, whether teachers, community members, you know, utilizing our district facilities group to really begin the nuts and bolts of where we can go in design for this project and staying within the constraints of the monetary value. So we will be moving along. I plan on being able to update more regularly as we begin our meetings in our board updates section and at board meetings as well. This is a larger project, so one of the first things we've got to take a look at is construction management of of this project. $14.8 million is a lot of money. In the past, we've been able to do this with either just Rich or a clerk of the works, but this is a bit larger project, so that'll be some of the things that we'll be talking about at our meeting on Wednesday. But we're looking forward to it. The hard part was getting it passed. The harder part is making sure that we hit all our targets, hit all our goals, and stay within our budget. It's a crazy economy.
Thanks for the update, Mike. One question I have is, at an earlier phase of when we were talking about the capital project, I think earlier this year, I'd asked a question about, I asked the architect about energy efficiency.
Yep.
And he said that that's something, we'll look at later.
Or at later.
Right, that's what I thought, and that was the question. And so I hope that it will be considered, and if we could have, I don't know at what point an evaluation will be made as to what's possible, but I know that there's a lot of incentives out there for more efficient systems and equipment. And these are long-term investments, and I think the payback should be there for at least some things. I don't know what, you have to look at it specifically. So I ask again that be considered, and if we could just be updated at an appropriate time as to what was considered, and either rejected or decided we can move forward with, especially for some of the larger pieces of equipment. It might make sense to, if at all possible, pick the more energy efficient item, especially if there are incentives out there which will help pay for it. And I'm sorry, be clear, the incentives, I'm not talking about state aid, I'm talking about like through NYSERDA or
right.
or federal incentives.
Yep, absolutely. And again, I've had a post-it note above my computer on my bookshelf with your, make sure that we're looking at incentives. And I think as we get through these initial stages of design and we start to move into what is going to look like, that'll be a big part of the energy conservation. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay, then I'm going to turn it over again to Mike. Then if you could update us on the field work, please.
Yes, so as I've tried to keep you guys updated on the fields, baseball and softball field, as you know, Gallo ran into some issues and we have not started this softball field, but we were able to get to a point with the baseball field where we were able to get primarily the majority of the work done. A couple of changes at the last minute in regards to, we wanted to take advantage of growing season, so instead of just putting seed down, we had asked that Gallo put down some sod behind the infield to really make sure that when we get into that springtime, that's ready to generate and grow and be able to move into not disrupt our baseball season at all. There is a bit of an issue in the warning track with some of the material that they've used. We're waiting to see how that withstands. I know that there is another layer of stone dust that they're using to make sure that that's going to drain properly. So we'll continue to watch and look at that. The tennis courts are a different animal right now. We have done enough investigation into regards to what some of the issues were in and around the fence posts and with some of the cracks that are happening across the courts. They don't seem to be really so much around, not necessarily design, but there is some concern around maybe workmanship. We have engaged with our school attorney to begin to look at what we could possibly do from a district standpoint and making sure that we are able to recover any costs that are going to be put out with our vendors, with our contractors. So we have, through Jeff, have looked to use a forensic architect, which I had no idea there was such a thing. So we will be meeting with them shortly as they look at the data and some of the information that we have now seen on those tennis courts, to take a look at legally what we can do to hold people accountable for some of the work that has taken place out on the tennis courts. I don't like that we're in this position, but at the same time, you know, we've taken a look at where we're at with this, and we've got a little bit of time. We've discussed it with design. There's a 3-year window that we can get involved with attorneys for workmanship. There's 6 years. So we are within that window, but that window is going to close soon. So we want to make sure that we are pursuing this with our forensic architect and taking a look at what our legal options are to make sure that any costs that are involved in repairs will be shouldered not by the Greenville community, but by the contractors. So more to come on that. Any questions about that?
Is there any learning that we can take and apply it for contracts for the ongoing
Our future,
Yes.
I think that'll be a conversation that, you know, Matt has been very involved from SEI with us as we take a look at some of the issues that we've had in and around the fields and the tennis courts. We will be sure as we move forward to say, you know, what are some of those protections the community in Greenville has in regards to some of the checks and balances as this work is taking place, that it's done to spec and to design.
Any other questions? Okay, I think we already talked about the student Board of Education members, so I'm going to skip over that unless anyone has a need to say something.
Sorry, jump the shark on it.
And Mike, if you could update us on the foreign language endowment, please.
Yes, it's a big endowment. We met with Fred and Kelsey Vale and Robin Willoughby with the language department in regards to what this endowment entails and how the school can, well, not even the school, how it can be spent. It's a rather large endowment, and it is being managed through a company out of Albany, I believe, that is kind of housing this and investing in this money. We had a great conversation in which Fred was very specific on what was laid out in bequeathing the money to Greenville, that it had to be used for high school world language, high school only. It cannot go towards anything that the school district would normally pay for. But what the Greenville Educational Foundation is going to do is, instead of having the normal requirements of a fall and springtime application for request for this very one amount of money, because it is so large, that they will look at any ideas that the World Language Department comes up with in regards to funding at any time throughout the course of this year and coming years. Some of the suggestions, some of the things that they talked about is that they cannot use it for salaries, they cannot use it for stipends, but they can use it for enhancing educational opportunities for kids in these languages. So whether it's trips, domestic or foreign, field trips, things like that, of that nature. So the way we've left it now is that the department is going to go back and take a look and start to game plan how they could begin to use some of this money. There is no timetable on this. As long as that money is there, they've got access to it. One of my things I've asked the department to really be mindful of is, you know, as we take a look at providing opportunities, that we are, whenever possible, being able to scaffold opportunities for kids, whether it's from 9th grade up to high school level, that we be mindful in the way we're going to be able to utilize these funds and give experiences to kids that they wouldn't normally have whether it's bringing speakers in from other countries, or from other areas, whether it's through Google Meets or Zoom or whatever, but really it's wide open as far as opportunities for use of this money. So, that's it.
And you said there's no time limitation on when it needs to be used by?
Nope.
Wonderful. So moving us on, if you could tell us about the Greene County School Board's meeting. Right now, it is tentatively scheduled for, please mark your calendars, Monday, January 30th, 2023. The location is still TBD, but just save the date.
Yes, and so what we're going to be looking for, Randy Squires put this out there, the superintendent of Coxsackie Athens, is ideas for potential roundtable discussions with other board members in Greene County to talk about some of the hot topic issues. Obviously, you know, just based on my knowledge alone, a couple of things that I put out there is, you know, obviously the vaping issues that we're seeing across the county. Sportsmanship was something early when this idea first came up. Was something that, you know, I wanted to kind of wrap my head around and see what other boards and what other schools are dealing with. But I'd be very interested in hearing from the board as far as potential topics for these meetings. You know, so if it's not tonight, please shoot me an email. We're supposed to have a meeting this week, a Zoom meeting to kind of start to talk about, brainstorm the logistics of all this. But I'll keep you posted on that when it happens.
Thank you. So a couple of quick reminders. We have January 9th is the first budget meeting, which will include the rollover budget. That's at 6 p.m. here in this location. We also have Saturday, January 21st, including a data analysis. That will be a half day on a Saturday from 9 to noon. So if you, again, save the dates. I didn't make fancy graphics, but just add them to your calendars, please. Does anyone have any future items or any items for future discussion?
So, Mike and the board members are aware of the ChatGPT AI chatbot that just came out. It's just the latest iteration, I think, of technology that is going to affect education, teaching and homework and testing, etc. And I think it would be good to try to be proactive, at least in understanding what the technology is, what other technologies like it are out there that students might be able to use and probably are using, and start understanding how, at least as a board, kind of how you manage that. And I don't know if I'd like to know what the district is also currently, like how you look at it. I don't know that there are solutions now, but I'd like to at least have a discussion, understand what's out there, what can be done. What the current thinking is. At a board meeting, I think this is also something you might consider for the Greene County school boards meeting, to talk to the other school boards. Whether or not you do it there, though, I think it would be useful to start discussing it here as a board and as a district.
I appreciate that, and Tracy, I'm sure, was just going to jump on and say that this was a lot of what Bill Daggett talked about at our Questar Saturday workshop that we went to, and the advancement of this technology has gotten so good so fast that it really has not hit districts, and it is so good that this artificial intelligence can actually cite resources. It's almost close to impossible to try to track at this point. So it really does become an idea of how are we looking at teaching and learning in a different way, rather than homework, take home. So it is all about it or using. Again, it's one of those things where, you got to be careful not to advertise that we know it's out there, because for all those folks who know it's there, there's probably 100 that don't know it's there and now are going to find it. So it really does become an issue for us.
And I understand that side of it, but there's a lot of reporting on it. I think it's pretty widely known, and I think the risk of not discussing it and trying to figure out how to deal with it is greater than the risk of informing the students who don't know about it that it's out there.
Yeah, I don't mean not to talk about it. I think
Right,
we
I
need to
didn't
talk
take
about
it
it.
that
I
way.
think I don't want, like the vaping situation, I don't want to put it out there for folks. But I think from the board standpoint, I think we absolutely have to talk about it.
I'm going to say that, I love analogies. And so we are at a point similar for engineers that used to use slide rulers when calculators came in. And so it's interesting to see how on, whether it's the Regents exams or when some students are allowed to use for a portion of it a calculator, but then other portions they're not allowed to. And I think we're going to be, with this technology, which I'm becoming very familiar with it, we're kind of going to be going down that route. And so it's a matter of, in education, how do we provide the foundation that then can be leveraged so that technology can be used? And that's kind of, I don't have the answer or anything else, but that's the analogy that I see. Just when calculators were introduced, in fact, there was a funny YouTube video where they gave a slide ruler to a bunch of MIT students and they didn't have a clue what to do with it because it was from a different era. We will look back 25 years from now and it will be a different era. So, cars came in, horses were affected. It's going to disrupt. It absolutely is going to disrupt. So that's my 2 cents. And I've been using it. Mine's off. All right, then I have the open closing forum. Please note the same guidelines apply as stated during the first open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Do we have any emails?
No.
Okay.
May I speak?
Sure, come on up, Carol.
Can you just take the microphone, please, just so they can hear you?
I'd like to speak tonight on the personnel agenda items of abolishing a 6.5-hour aid monitor and creating a 6.0-hour aid monitor that passed with no board discussion. I believe we're making cuts in unfortunate places. That position was formerly held by a longtime friend and coworker who retired after the loss of a spouse. She will be missed. She was a kind, skilled, and valued employee. Aid monitors in particular, but also bus drivers, food service employees, clerical employees, buildings and grounds are all part of the GPF. Our members greet our students each morning with a smile, feed them a warm and comforting breakfast, welcome them into the classroom, and patiently review lessons. They include them in games on the playground, open their milk cartons, scribe their lessons, and help them with toileting. They get them safely to their parents' car at the end of each day or dropped off at their home. The district is making cuts at the lowest pay level, yet arguably one of the most critical levels in our district. These employees help support local families, and benefits go a long way to helping support them. Keeping 6.5-hour positions helps with employee retention in a time where that is a challenge. These aides who are currently working 6.5 hours and earn benefits are career-long employees here. They are a valuable commodity to the district. It is disheartening to see cuts like this. It devalues the GPF membership, it lowers morale, and leads to high employee turnover. It is not in the best interest of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to be made to adjourn to executive session. Okay, any discussion?
I had got an email that came in, so I was just making
Oh,
sure.
I'm
that-
sorry.
It was
Before
okay. I was just making sure it wasn't, and so I missed. I got Eric in a second. Dave, thank you.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Duncan, if you can hear me,